right, so you are terrifying. Wrong glasses, man. All right, so I am going to talk about how to make your novel unputdownable. If this is not what you came for, then please, the door is this way. This is not genre specific. This does not rely on you being a plotter, a plantser, a pantser. It doesn't matter whether or not you're using Save the Cat, or you're using StoryGrid, or you're using The Hero's Journey. All of that is completely immaterial to what I'm going to talk about today. God, is this really loud? No? Okay. So I need to give a shout out to the people who helped me get here. If you know me personally, you know that I am the queen of self-doubt. You might think that you are the queen of self-doubt. You are not. I am the queen of self-doubt. I have been coming to 20Books since it started. I've been to every 20Books Vegas. I went to 20Books Bali. Nobody knows who I am. I have been quietly writing books under pen names. If anyone hasn't read Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, you absolutely should read The Artist's Way. She talks about what it means to be a shadow artist. And I have been, of necessity, a shadow artist for most of my career, which means that either I've been a ghostwriter or a script doctor or a developmental editor, or I've written under pen names. And gradually, I came to see that I could make more money writing my own books than doing all of the stuff that was a guaranteed payout. Because, you know, if you ghostwrite a book, they give you the cash up front, and it doesn't matter if they fuck up everything that happens after. You still got your money. And then I worked out that I could make more money writing my own books. And so gradually I have moved into writing my own books. And there are people who helped me get here. She's not here, but the person who I'm probably going to cry, I'm so sorry. My beloved and beautiful wife, who is at home taking care of the dogs, who believed in me before anybody knew there was anything to believe in. She also gave me a place to hide. We wrote films together, so her names would go on the films, and I could just stay in the background, which is where I wanted to be. My wonderful, wonderful brother, without whom I would not have made it through my childhood. A clutch of friends who helped me get here. But I also need to thank Mike Krause from Ionic Press. I was an extraordinarily weird applicant when he opened applications to write post-apoc, and he took a chance on me, and now my first series with him. We haven't released the omnibus yet, but we are coming up on 300 grand. And we're probably, I'm going to guess, unless I fuck it up again, we'll probably hit 500,000 with that. So I want to thank him for taking a chance on me. And then I want to thank my much, much loved Hellcats, Hellhounds, and Doom Scribblers, many of whom are remote and couldn't make it. I love you. Thank you for taking a chance and coming and writing for charity with me. It's a long story, I won't bore you with that, but I owe you as well that push to get me up here and share some of what I have learned along the way, much of which they have taught me. In the last year, I've been doing a charity gig, which has involved 30 writers of varying places in their craft, and teaching them what I know. Don't you dare die, I will kill you. Okay, yes. So in the last year, they forced me to codify what I know. And so I'm going to share some of the things that I know. Scrolling, it's really boring. I could talk about my credentials, but it's really dull. We've got 45 minutes. I'm a writer who makes a living, who pays their mortgage, who pays the bills, who supports other people in my family as a writer. So I think bottom line, should you trust what I say? No, absolutely not. So I also, just to help me calibrate a little bit what I'm going to talk about, I need to know something about you. I need to know, there are going to be two questions I'm going to ask. One is, how many books do you have out? And the second question is, are you making a living? But I don't want to set off anybody's comparison voices in the back of their heads, because I know how that goes. So what I'm going to ask you to do is either close your eyes to answer this question, or if you're not comfortable closing your eyes in a room full of strangers, just put your head down so everyone has got the same amount of privacy. And I'm going to ask you, do you have this many books out? And then keep your hand up if you're making a living with that number of books out. Is that clear? Okay. I need the other glasses so I can see you, because mostly I don't want to see you. All right, so how many people have one book out? Of those people, how many of you are making a living with one book? Great. How many people have got 1 to 5 books out? Okay, how many people are making a living? 5 to 10? Making a living? 10 to 15? Making a living? 15 to 20, making a living. 20 plus, making a living. Great. I was going to say, if you've got 20 books out and you are not making a living with 20 books out, then you really need to stay here and listen to what I say. After you have looked at covers, marketing, keywords, blurb, if all of that is spot on and you're getting that spot on and you've got more than 20 books out and you're not making a living, stay. I've got something that I can say to you. All right, what am I not going to talk about? I am not going to talk about how to get that book into people's hands. I could not sell water to someone who is dying in the desert. I have zero idea of how to sell anything. Go listen to all the people who talk about nailing your cover, your blurb, your keywords and marketing. Learn from them. What I am going to talk about is the book itself and how you write something that people cannot put down so that you end up getting the emails that say, I forgot to feed the kids. Yes. I stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning, turning the pages. I absolutely couldn't put it down. When is the next book coming out? That's what I want to talk to you about. If we did a scattergraph of all the books that are out there, and we looked at what sells and popularity, smack in the middle would, of course, be romance and mystery. There are the big perennial sellers. And if we have time at the end, I'll talk about why that's the case. But even if you don't write in the absolutely most popular, best-selling genres, for your audience, you can still make your books unputdownable. That does not mean that you are going to write a book that everybody loves. There is no such thing as a book that everybody loves. Go find your absolutely favorite book and read the 1-star reviews. And you'll just be like, oh my God, you're so full of shit and you're wrong. They are talking about taste. They're talking about something that didn't work for them. Of the big things that I want to talk about today, if you get the first part right, which is about keeping the judge monster quiet, if you can get that right, a lot of people will keep reading with you. But if you get the second part that doesn't match up with their tastes, they are not going to stick with you. We're going to be talking about brain science. And so there are people for whom, if you're talking about the yummy stuff that you love, that you cannot get enough of, the id stuff that you can't get enough of, if it doesn't match up with theirs, they're just not going to love your book. There's no way that you can make them. If you only have a few reviews, you do not have a data set, so don't worry if you've got a few reviews and all 3 of them hate you. It doesn't mean squat. You actually need a big data set to work out whether or not there is something that is or isn't working, unless, of course, you have a critique group, which I really, really recommend. Why is my writing so big? So stuff about, if you do want to read your reviews or you don't want to read your reviews, if you don't want to read them, have somebody else read them for you and bring the stuff that's useful to you. Print out your 5-star reviews and make sure you read them very, very often so that you can keep going. If you do have a big data set and you have got a lot of people who hate your books, you need to ask yourself both some marketing and some craft questions. The marketing questions are, were you marketing to the right people? Did you have the right keywords? But then on the craft side, you need to ask questions about, did you have a killer premise? Were the stakes high enough? Did you hit the tropes? Did you make your main protagonist relatable? Not likable, that's not the same. We're talking about relatable. Did you make your antagonist hateable in a relatable way? Were your protagonist and your antagonist paired properly? We'll talk a bit about that. Did you create a cause and effect trajectory? That's one way to get people turning the pages, if you create a cause and effect trajectory. Were you writing from the inside out or the outside in? Are you plot or are you story focused? And once you've got all of those sorted out, you're going to apply a test. And this is a test that I haven't heard anyone else talking about. But if you can nail this test to the wall, we are going to solve the mystery of why your books aren't working. And if you haven't written them yet, we are going to work out how to write the unputdownable book. You can and you will write books that your readers will love. Okay, so who are we? We are meat-covered skeletons powered by an electrochemical lump of meat. And that piece of meat makes people hallucinate. And in order to make people hallucinate in an ongoing way, you need them to suspend Judgy McJudgeson, suspend disbelief, and make them feel. So, in order to make your books unputdownable, you need to feed the logic monster so that the brain, the much more primitive brain, the lizard brain, can glut itself on the id stuff. Oh God, really? Scrolling, it's just, I did practice, I promise. Nerves. I'm thinking about an example of where somebody stops because the logic monster is in control. So I'm thinking about the film adaptation, the 1995 adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, where somebody will say, well, it wasn't in the book. So everyone who's read P&P knows what I'm talking about. So the scene where Mr. Darcy dives in there, everyone's like, that wasn't in the book. So that means they're not in the story. If they can do that level of analysis, which is the logic side of the brain, then they're not in the experience. You haven't bypassed the cerebrum to get to the place where hallucinations are happening all the time, which is where you want your readers to be. And it's a little bit unfair as that example because, we're 200 years on and there's been a lot of analysis of Pride and Prejudice, so you might say that because you know the analysis, but if your readers can point out the logic holes in your story, they are not in the story. So one of the things you need to do is to make sure that there are no logic holes in your story. Right. So let's do a little bit of brain science. I apologize to any brain scientists in the room. I am not a scientist of any kind. I love reading about the brain and what makes people tick, but this is going to be very rough and ready and very simplified. The entire evolutionary history of the brain still exists in the brain, a lot like the rings of a tree trunk. So the amygdala is this very, very ancient structure in the brain that controls fight and flight. And from there, you've got the different structures of the brain as we evolved until you've got this massive, judgy thing, the cerebrum, that helps us decide what to do and also gets in the way of the hallucinatory experience of reading a book. So what we need to do is we need to get the cerebrum to chill the fuck out and accept the illusion, suspend the misbelief, so that we can tap into the more ancient structures of the brain, where reality is whatever we feed it. The brain cannot distinguish between a story and reality once you are in that. If you can get your readers inside your story, they become the main protagonist. And once they become the main protagonist, and you do all the things you need to do to keep them turning the pages, there is zero chance they're going to work tomorrow, and their kids are all going to starve. So a little bit more brain science. The whole point of the brain is to keep us alive. And the idea is that way back when we're out on the savannah, we are scanning. And what we're scanning for is the same, different. Different is the lion that is going to eat you. However, we need to conserve as much energy as possible. And so even the brain, I mean, if you're being unkind, which my brain is very unkind to me, if you're being unkind, you'll say the brain is lazy. And MRIs have shown that when we scan, in fact, we're not seeing reality. If we're somewhere very familiar, we are going to pull that up from memory, because that takes a lot less RAM. So we pull up something from memory, and then all the brain is doing is looking for the new to slot it in. And when the new happens, then the brain says, okay, adrenaline is available to you because you are going to run away or outfox that lion. You are going to be able to do it because we just saw something new. Oh, okay, it's just my toothbrush moved. It's okay. So you are seeing same from memory, same, different. And they're the two things that you need to do. And you've heard this before from people who market books. Your readers want the same, but different. And every time I hear that, I'm like, what in the name of does that mean? I mean, what does it mean? But we know what it means, right? I had a really great example. How much time have I got? I need to change glasses. Sorry. Oh my God, we've still got half an hour. Oh no. So to get us back into back into the brain science. I just knew this was going to be so much fun. So you probably noticed when you drive down a new road, it's quite tiring and it takes a long time. If you do anything new, your brain has to be on alert. But if you drive down that same road 3, 4, 5 times, it seems shorter. So the distance is exactly the same, but when you're doing something, it feels like it takes less time because you're using less RAM. You're actually pulling up memory. You're not actually seeing what's in front of you. You're working from memory. See, I thought that was really awesome, but I can't see you, so, it's just fun. It turns out, because we've got this same, different thing going on, the different thing that happens is this jolt of chemicals that goes through your body. And those chemicals feel really great because now your muscles are all ready and you are primed for action. And this is one of the reasons that we are addicted to the new. We are addicted as a species. There's a fancy schmancy word for it. But basically, we're like dogs. We are addicted to the new. Your dogs don't just like the new toy because it isn't as smelly as the old toy. It's because it's something new and it fires something in the brain that says, new is exciting because now I've got adrenaline and I'm primed to fight and kill the lion. So we're going to stitch these things together and talk about same. The cerebrum, the big judgy part of your brain, wants things to remain the same. And the amygdala, which is your fight, flight, freeze, frolic. So I just love that that's the fourth F. That is the one that is looking for the different bit. But if you do not feed the logic monster, you cannot get to the exciting bit. If you have got things that are firing off that say, this isn't the same, this isn't the same, you never ever get to the primal stuff, which is where your novel becomes completely irresistible to your readers. So, I am going to ask you to write, if you're a writing down person, if you're not, that's completely fine as well. But what I wrote was, I'm going to ask you to write this down, bold it, and underline it, because I haven't heard anybody else talking about this. The question that you need to know before you write your novel is how you want your readers to feel. How do you want them to feel? If you don't know how you want your readers to feel, you are going to misfire. And there are a bunch of different ways that you can misfire. I'm so parched. So, for example, if you're writing a psychological thriller, right, you do not want your readers to feel giddy and giggly in a moment of high tension. You want them to feel the tension. You have to know what you're aiming for at the feeling level. Similarly, if you're writing, say, a cozy mystery, you don't want them to feel existential dread. You want them to feel like this is warm and comforting and wonderful, and I'm with friends, and someone got killed, and that's really sad, but doesn't it feel good? All right, this is not a template. This is a series of guidelines. You're going to have to do a lot of homework in your own genre. But once you've done the homework, you just cannot go wrong. You won't be able to go wrong once you know how to quiet the logic monster, how to feed the id, and what you want your readers to feel. Once you know these things, absolutely unputdownable. All right, so we've got the cerebrum. It's looking for the same. The same is calming. Same, different. Big, judgy part of the book that will say, he didn't dive in the pond in the book. How do you get past it? You can't tiptoe by it. You can't cheat it. It's extraordinarily adept. So what do you want? I've already said you want absolutely unassailable logic. It could mean, for your readers, you'll have to find this out for your readers. It could mean that that's a 3-act structure. It could mean that you're looking at a cause and effect trajectory. Lisa Cron in Story Genius says that, excuse me, I'm going to burp. Of course, I had to tell you that. I couldn't just say I was drinking water. So Lisa Cron says that all of the plot stuff, whether or not it's a 3-act plot or, there are 7 basic plots, and the book is really, really awesome. And she says that that's all wrong because plotting is from the outside in instead of the inside out. And so what she really wants you to concentrate on is to build a cause and effect trajectory. Does everybody know what this is? If you do not know what I'm talking about, put your hand up. Oh, okay. Well, this is really awesome. So plot is what happens, and story is why what happens matters to your main protagonist. And depending on the genre that you're writing, the balance of plot and story is going to be really different. If you're writing hard sci-fi, you're going to be way plottier than you are going to be story. If you're writing romance, you really want to know how everybody feels. You want to know how they're reacting. So you're going to have a lot of exteriority, stuff happening, and people physically reacting in sci-fi. And in, say, romance, you're going to have stuff happens, and they react and make a decision, and something changes, but we understand their interiority. We know what's going on in their minds and their hearts, and we have a lot of that to feed to our audience, and everyone's audience is different. You need to know where you are at the either end of plot and story. But the cause and effect trajectory is plot happens, right? Something happens, and your main protagonist reacts. And the way they react sets the next domino in motion. So they set up whatever happens next. That happens. Of course, they hope they're setting up something fantastic, but you're writing a novel, so it's never something fantastic. You are always going to fuck it up because it's a story. So you set up this thing, best intentions, it's all going to go great, and then it doesn't. And that produces a reaction, and they make another decision, and that decision sets up the next domino, and that is like, see, I solved everything. I'm just a genius. Boom. No, everything is worse. So the cause and effect trajectory is that your protagonist is making decisions from the inside. It's driven by the character. I've always believed that, for me, plot is character, because I'm much further on the story side than I am on the plot side. But Lisa Cron in Story Genius argues that you do not need a structure of any kind if you have the cause and effect trajectory. If you can show that when something happens, your protagonist reacts, which sets up the next thing that happens, so they react, which sets up the next thing that happens. So if you've got that, we need to keep reading, because we need to know, how is it going to go right? How is it going to go wrong? We're going to keep reading because we have no idea how those dominoes are going to form. I don't agree with Lisa. I taught in her class for a few years, and she's tremendous. And if you haven't read Story Genius, you absolutely should read Story Genius. It was a game changer for me. But I believe that the kind of structure that your audience wants is what should drive your decision. So if you are writing cozy mysteries, they do expect certain things. Your readers expect certain things to happen at certain times. They understand what the inciting incident looks like. They understand when. They would never know how to articulate this to you. But if you get that wrong, if you don't deliver the dead body when they're expecting the dead body, and you don't have the wonderful old lady who is going to solve the mystery with the quirky cat and the cupcakes, if you don't have all these things, they're just like, I don't know, something wasn't right, I just didn't, right? So if you're not getting the structure right for your readers, they are going to stop reading. Other places you need unassailable logic. So we've got our cause and effect trajectory. If you're going that way, you've got your structure, continuity, really, really basic things. Continuity, people's eyes colors don't change. They don't suddenly look different. Psychologically, they don't suddenly behave differently. So you've got all of these things that are keeping the cerebrum calm, because they understand that they are in good hands, and you have got control of the logistics of your story. It went backwards. It actually scrolled backwards on me. I just don't even know how that happened. So there are all these ways that you are keeping this, I call it the logic monster, because mine is monstrous, absolutely monstrous. Once you've got the logic monster calmed, you need the next level is, for example, to know what your character's goals are. You need a goal at the novel level, but you also need goals at the scene level. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to set up your goal, attack, thwart. And that can be at the chapter level, or it can be, goal, attack is 3 chapters later, and the thwart is several chapters. It really depends on the shape of your novel, but they have to be really consistent, and you have to be convincing to your readers that all of the logical stuff is completely worked out, and now everything is calm, and now we get to the hallucinating bit, which is, I think, when you really have the chance to grab them and absolutely not let them go. So you've got your question, what do you want your readers to feel? And we're going all the way back to the lizard brain, right? And the lizard brain is about survival. So it doesn't matter if you're using the 4Fs, it doesn't matter if you're using Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it also doesn't matter if they've been thrown out and they are debunked as, Maslow's doesn't, that's not right anymore. It's a tool. You can use it as a tool because what you want to get down to is, are there basic human things that we have in common that go to the survival of us as both a species and as individuals? Gosh, that was 5 o'clock this morning. It's rubbish. I'm so sorry. I'm going to point you, I don't want to spend a lot of time on somebody else's hypothesis. Any book that I've recommended, I didn't ghostwrite. I've ghostwritten a lot of things, but I'm not making any money off anything that I recommend. There is a talk by Dr. Jennifer Barnes. It's in the Romance Writers 2018. It's called Writing for Your Id. And she talks about what kind of id things that you love, and she breaks them up into plots. So beautiful id things that are about survival that you personally love. And she's got examples like she has a weakness for, what did she say? She's got a weakness for twins. She's got a weakness for mistaken identity. So she goes through trope things that really speak to her at the id level. She's got plot, place, tropes, and people. But the big universal id things that you need to think about, touch. Touch is one of these universal things. Touch does not necessarily mean sex. It doesn't even necessarily mean intimacy. It can be it can, if your characters are having sexy sex, good for them. But it can also be braiding someone's hair. It can be picking up a dog. These are things that talk to survival level stuff that your readers really want to get to. Apparently beauty is one of those across all kinds of cultures, and there are different ideas of beauty, but we all have an idea of beauty, and there are lots of different theories about why we care about beauty, because we're picking a spouse. I mean, I didn't pick my spouse for that reason. Oh, she's gorgeous, but that's not why I picked her. But there are these ideas about why we are drawn to beauty and what beauty means, but it's across all cultures. So you want to feed this into your novels, whether it's people or place or sumptuous banquets or a perfectly prepared meal. There are ways in which you want to keep pushing the beauty button. Doesn't mean you have to write about beauty. You can write about the converse. You can flip all of these things and write about the opposite. So people who are struggling with beauty, who are beautiful in different ways, that's still going to speak to this id part of the brain. Power. Apparently, we're attracted to power. Who knew that? All different kinds of power. We care very much in the novel about power differentials. I worked at a hedge fund for 12 years, and I have to tell you, it's stunning to watch millionaires run to the billionaire to give away their power. Absolutely fascinating. We are as a whole, it does not mean everyone. So when you say that there is this universal id thing across all cultures, it does not mean every single human being feels this way. In our scattergraph, it means that most people generally will respond to this, right? So, I'm like, but we are, as a species, we are interested in power, and we are interested in how power is deployed by whoever it's deployed. Competition is another one of these universal pleasures. So we get pleasure from reading about any of these things. Just pick any book, one of the best-selling books in your genre, and I can almost guarantee that there will be some kind of competition. Not only because you've got your protagonist and your antagonist. You know what? I still can't see what the time is. I mean, this is great. I'm not nervous at all. I haven't been locked in my room for 2 days working on this. It's completely fine. Okay, so we've got touch, beauty, wealth, power, competition, and danger. Danger is another one of these universal things that goes across cultures, all different kinds of danger that you want to play around with in your work when you get to the id stuff. You really want to, yay, 10 minutes. Then I'm going to get so drunk you won't even recognize me. So danger, one of the theories about danger is that we enjoy danger in novels because it's called safe danger. Because even though the lion is chasing you in the book, and even though you are hallucinating it, and you can't actually tell the difference, the lion's not actually going to get you. So there's a way in which you can enjoy that danger and you can experience that danger. And I would argue, personally, that books allow you to enjoy all the aspects of being a human being. We live these, in my opinion, we live these quite narrow lives that are hemmed in. I'm not saying that morals and ethics are bad. They're awesome, they're great. And I love society, and I love that we work together, and I love peace. But in a book, you get to explore what it means to be an evil overlord. You get to explore what it means to have 16 lovers. You get to, I mean, some of you maybe do, and that's awesome, and I'm very proud of you, because that's a tough life, man. But we get to explore all these things that are the whole palette of the human experience. And I believe that we have this quite polite, narrow palette that we live in our real lives, but we feel all these other things. At the id level, we want to be the evil damn emperor who blows up our enemies and gets away with it. We just do. I mean, you know, once you were 3 and throwing a tantrum, and that still exists in you, that desire to smite your enemies. You're not going to let yourself feel that, but when you get into a book, you get to do that. You absolutely get to do that, and I think that's one of the great privileges. When you go, definitely, it's worth the $6. So the RWA talk, it's absolutely worth the $6. Go listen to it. She will have you write your own id list, and she'll also explain the id list and the idea of the pleasure reward principle that is driving this. Is Pinker's idea that we love id things because they're cheesecake, and cheesecake is awesome, and we love fat and sugar, and anything that is the equivalent of fat and sugar, we're absolutely going to go for. So she will help you work through your own id list. I would say you actually need to go a level deeper than that. You need to work out what your reader's id list is. And that's going to take some doing. That means either you've got a really, really great feedback system with your readers and they're in touch with you, or you read very, very deeply in your genre, or you're just like a superhuman psychologist and you really, really are tapped into what makes people tick, and you know how to, but you have to understand what it is your readers want from these universal things that all human beings enjoy. You need to know what your readers enjoy, because the grimdark people who want to see the morally bankrupt person go and behead everyone who needs to be beheaded are not going to enjoy the cozy tea party that the cozy readers are just in and loving, the pleasure that your readers want to take away, that taps into their brain, that they cannot put your book down for. That is genre specific. The principles are not. The homework is. All right, so I've got 5 minutes, yay. So I'm going to go through some of the questions that I asked very early on. So if your book isn't working and you're asking yourself, does it have a killer premise, right? So you want, for each of these things, each of these craft questions that you ask yourself, you run them through this test. The two-part test is, does it keep the logic monster quiet? And does it speak to the id? Do we have the cerebrum and the amygdala taken care of? So I was thinking that serial killer premise, Silence of the Lambs, right? So we've got lots of sameness, lots and lots of sameness. We've got the FBI, we've got a prison, we've got a serial killer on the loose, and then what do we throw in that's different, that starts this thing that goes to the very primal level? We throw in this Zhejian female FBI agent who is emotionally very vulnerable, and the key moment in that movie is, have the lambs stopped screaming, Clarice? That's got nothing to do with plot. That's got everything to do with story, and that's got everything to do with id, and it's got everything to do with same, different, right? This different thing is the thing that absolutely makes us not capable of looking away. Murder mystery, police procedural, Luther, fabulous, fabulous English series. So we've got all of the usual things that we expect. We've got a policeman who doesn't really take care of his marriage and is completely obsessed and works all the hours. But then we've got the different bits. The different bits are, he is so in love with his wife that he can't let go of her. And I don't want to give too much. If you haven't watched Luther, you absolutely have to watch Luther because it's an Idris Elba. I mean, he's not too good looking. Without giving too much away, the different things are that this policeman makes friends with a teenage prostitute who's just one of these great, great characters. You might have to put the subtitles on because she's almost incomprehensible. But she's got some great lines. Really, disco is a great line. He makes friends with the psychopath who, in fact, did the murder that he is trying to solve. And she turns up as a character, and she is morally bankrupt. She is absolutely morally bankrupt. And she becomes his friend. Same, different. And then he makes friends with his wife's lover. And the teenage girl that he has rescued from being a teenage prostitute ends up staying. I mean, they do handcuff her, and it's a bit weird. But anyway, she ends up staying with his wife's lover. So you've got all these ways in which you're taking the tropes and you're running them through. Everything is what we need to meet the expectation of our genre, and then we're twisting it and getting the id stuff in there. So I think that we're going to go to Q&A, because I've gone over time, because I can see colors, I can't see times. So probably what I'll do is I'm not going to make a slide, I'm not going to lie to you, because I can't. But I will put something up in the main room that shows you the other examples that I had that I wanted to run through with you about stakes and relatable characters and antagonists and their misbelief. But does anyone have any questions? If you want to come up to the mic.
Just a quick question. What year was that talk from the RWA conference?
2018.
2018, thank you.
Yes.
You have 1 minute. 1 minute.
Any other questions?
What was the show you just referenced?
Luther. No, I haven't seen Lucifer. Questions? All right. Oh, no, we've got a question. Yes, go. We've still got 53 seconds.
I was intimidated, too, to ask you a question. So you mentioned about the protagonist and antagonist having a certain dynamic between them.
Yep.
Could you just speak for a moment more about that?
So you're massive topic. We could spend an entire hour. The question was, can you talk about the protagonist and the antagonist? So your protagonist, if you're doing a story that's got an arc, your protagonist starts out with a misbelief, and that misbelief gets tested by the plot. So things happen and their misbelief changes, and things happen and their misbelief changes, and things happen and their misbelief changes throughout their arc. If they overcome their misbelief, you are in comedy or drama. If they do not overcome their misbelief, if they do not change, if the person at the beginning of the novel and the person at the end of the novel is emotionally the same, that's tragedy. Pairing the protagonist and the antagonist, what you want to set up is a mirror image that can either be the flip or it can be parallel. So putting the author aside, looking at Harry Potter, Harry and Voldemort, you can make an argument for them being the same person, split, one who went the side of light and one who did not. I can tell you why if we had more time, but we don't. We're out of time. Thank you so much.